You've probably seen this phrase everywhere by now, net zero. It's being thrown around as the ultimate promise to save our planet. But what is it really? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut right through the jargon and show you what this massive global goal is all about. Right? It's on the news, it's all over social media, world leaders are talking about it. But when you get past the headlines, what will it actually take to get there? What does it mean for us? Let's dive in.
Okay, first things first. To really get a handle on the solution, we have to be super clear about the problem. And that all starts with our planet's, well, our planet's carbon problem.
Look, at its most basic level, the science here is pretty simple. We are pumping way too many greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And those gases, they act like a giant blanket wrapping around the Earth, trapping heat and making everything warmer.
And we always talk about CO2, but it is definitely not the only bad guy in this story. You've got methane, which comes from things like agriculture, and it's 28 times more powerful at trapping heat than CO2. Then there's nitrous oxide from fertilizers, a whopping 265 times more potent. It's this mix that makes the whole thing so complicated. So, where is all this stuff coming from? Well, the biggest piece of the pie, about 40%, is power generation, how we make our electricity. But look, industry, transportation, even the buildings we live and work in, they're all huge contributors. To really fix this, we have to change things in every single one of these areas. All right, so we've laid out the problem. Now let's talk about the solution that the entire world is aiming for, reaching net zero.
So what even is net zero? Honestly, the best way to wrap your head around it is to think of it like a bank account, but for carbon. Every time we release emissions, that's a deposit, and every time we actively pull carbon out of the atmosphere, that's a withdrawal. Net zero is that moment when our deposits and our withdrawals are perfectly balanced. The net result is, well, zero.
Now, this is a really important point, and it's something a lot of people get wrong. Net zero does not, I repeat, does not mean we stop all emissions completely. That's just not realistic for some industries like making cement or flying planes. The idea is to balance out those hard-to-avoid emissions by removing an equal amount.
So why all the fuss? Why this specific goal? It all comes down to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Scientists tell us that this is basically the line in the sand. If we go past it, we're looking at much more extreme weather, rising seas, just a whole host of really severe impacts. So net zero isn't just some buzzword, it's our best plan for a stable future.
Okay, so that's the what and the why. But what about the how? How on earth are we supposed to do this? Let's open up the toolkit for what experts call decarbonization. Decarbonization is pretty much the game plan. It's the whole process of systematically cutting our carbon emissions. And the main way we do that is by swapping out the fossil fuels we've relied on for centuries with much cleaner options. And the absolute star player in our toolkit is renewable energy. We're talking about solar, wind, hydropower, even using heat from the Earth itself. And you know what the best part is? The cost of solar and wind has dropped so much in the last few years that they're not just the clean choice, they're often the cheapest choice too. Another really promising tool is hydrogen. But, and this is a big but, you have to know that not all hydrogen is the same. There's gray hydrogen, which is made from natural gas and actually creates CO2. The real game changer is green hydrogen. That's made by using renewable electricity to split water, and the result is totally emission-free. That's the one we're aiming for. One of the most powerful tools we have is actually one of the simplest, just using less energy. It's called energy efficiency. Think about it, switching your lights to LEDs, making sure your home is properly insulated, using better appliances. Each little thing might seem small, but when you multiply it by billions of people, the impact is absolutely massive.
So, we've got some great tools for power and for our homes. But what about the really, really tough sectors? The industries that form the backbone of our modern world, but are also some of the biggest polluters? Let's talk about these hard-to-abate industries.
We're talking about the absolute fundamentals of modern life. Steel for our cities, cement for our roads, airplanes to connect the globe, and massive trucks to move all our stuff. For these industries, the emissions aren't just from burning fuel. They're often part of the chemical process itself. And that makes them incredibly difficult to clean up.
This is where we need to bring in the high-tech solutions.
Enter carbon capture, storage, and utilization, or CCS for short. It's basically a technology designed to grab CO2 emissions right at the source, like from a factory smokestack, before they can even get into the atmosphere.
So how does this actually work? Well, it's a three-step process. First, you have to capture the CO2 from the exhaust. Second, you have to transport it, usually in a pipeline. And third, you store it, typically by injecting it deep, deep underground into rock formations, where it gets locked away, hopefully, forever.
Okay, let's zoom out for a minute. We've got the goal, we've got the tools. What does the bigger picture look like? What's the global roadmap? And what huge hurdles are still in our way? You know, to really pull off net zero, we have to do more than just switch our energy sources. We have to fundamentally rethink our whole economy. For too long, we've lived in a take, make, and throw away world. The future has to be a circular economy, where we reduce, reuse, and recycle everything we possibly can. And the good news? The world is actually taking this seriously. All the major economies have set their own net zero targets. Yeah, the timelines are a bit different, which makes sense given their different situations, but the direction of travel is clear for everyone. The race to net zero is officially on. But let's be real for a second. This is not going to be easy. Not at all. We're talking about mind-boggling costs for new infrastructure, getting expensive new technologies to be cheaper, and figuring out how to keep our lights on when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. These are enormous challenges we have to solve. So here's the bottom line. The science is clear, the goal has been set, the toolkit is getting better every single day. The path to net zero is laid out in front of us. The only question left is the biggest one of all. Are we, all of us, actually ready for the journey?